So, before we proceed, let me just get a little bit more comfortable. Hi, everyone. I bet you guys are in your underwear. Everybody's in their underwear. Everybody's in their underwear. I actually stole that one from my cousin Mark, who pulled it off at his speech at his sister's wedding. And it's an old acting trick against anxiety. Basically, imagine everybody in the room being in their underwear or naked, making you feel less uncomfortable. There is nobody in the room, so I guess everybody's really naked and translucent. But I bet you guys home are in your pajamas or in your underwear. Too bad I didn't think of that earlier. I should have brought my underwear. All right. So this is the course that we'll be trying to stitch up together. Obviously, it's not something orthodox, so it's going to take shape as we go along. And your input, guys, I think will contribute a lot to what it's going to look in the end. I've done consulting for companies both in Bulgaria and abroad on similar subjects. And this is something different because here I want us to learn together and to reach some solutions based on real life principles that we can apply in our creative work later. So the course is ideally designed for creative directors, entrepreneurs, marketing executives, people who want to do something that's a little bit different from the usual marketing, creative, and business status quo as to stand out. And I expect you guys to have some general knowledge about terminology and visual content, common knowledge. So I won't be getting too much into explaining concepts, rather viewing real work examples from my field and that of other colleagues. So a little bit about who I am. My name is Vasil Tuchkov, and I'm one of the founders and head of creative of Studio Rubik. We are the Disruptive-Creative agency with over 50 million views. That's us. For companies like that. So I participated in viral guerrilla marketing, disruptive creative campaigns over the years alongside my great team. I guess we're here to share some know-how and some practical advice on things that do not have a particular formula and see how we can get these results more often than not. This is going to be a lecture about successful results, but moreover about failed attempts, missed timing, and how to calibrate that. So these are some of the partners that we have overseas. Japanese television, Daily Mail UK, we work with Comedy Central and Viacom. And I've tried to incorporate all the examples that I can speak about that are not under NDA and dissect different viral videos and disruptive practices that we've had in the world of business over the last decade. Share it with you guys, study it, watch a lot of videos. So pull out your popcorn and let's get rolling. It's more of a guide based on a personal and professional trier experience, what I aim to get with this course. Don't get in any shape or form the idea that I'm here to give you some formula on how to make a viral video or how to growth hack your product or your brand. I don't believe that there is such a formula written in fine print. I really do believe that all we can do is just mix some ingredients and follow a set of steps that have taken us to successful results in the past, and also observe a bunch of other steps that have derailed us of the path to success. We're going to try to cover how to establish a digital presence, design and execute rebranding campaigns, how to do disruptive guerrilla marketing and reach mass results on a limited budget. They're going to be taken out from real world examples on projects such as Red Bull, Audi, Comedy Central, Daily Mail, the Oscars. The course, yeah, somebody hates popcorn. Our lawyer. The course will cover the entire custom tailored process of basically brainstorming to the moment of going viral, if you're lucky, and your timing is right. So Kung Fu secrets inside, and moment. Also, I'd like to invite a lot of colleagues on this journey if we happen to make the course, both in the local field and internationally. People I've worked with, people that have viral results under their belts, and extreme athletes from the world of Red Bull, musicians, filmmakers. I think it's going to be really good to collaborate and have an open dialogue and tackle different strategies, and everybody can give their input. So I expect us to do a lot of practical tasks and not just theory, to have real life examples, and maybe at the end of this, if our ideas are good and they sync and they fly and we're passionate about it, maybe then we can pitch it to some of our clients. Who knows? Take it to the next level. So before I start, a little bit about myself. I come from a creative background, but later on kind of pivoted into business. And there was always this controversy which to choose. In the end, I found out they can exist together. So when I was 15, I wrote this novel called Racing with Destiny. It was a trilogy, a fantasy trilogy, translated into Russian. I went on writing in English. Writing has always been with me. Even at my lowest emotional or professional points, I seem to revert back to it. I went through photography, video, directing, installation art. I founded a couple of startups. I'm a partner in a few companies. And what I've learned over these years is that basically what it comes down to is a good story. And I really like stories, so this is going to be a lot about storytelling and how to sell your stories to yourself before you sell them to others, to your team, and then to your client and to your audience ultimately. So I graduated from the American University AUBG with business administration and advertising, which I was kind of against throughout my education because I wanted to do artistic stuff and disruptive stuff, but in the end, it's what enabled me to fund my ideas. And one does not get in the way of the other if you do it properly. So let's get down to storytelling. Before we go into any examples, whether they're for a Red Bull campaign, for a fintech client, or developing a new site, rebranding of the fashion industry, I always revert to the simple principle of keeping it stupid. Keep it simple, stupid, KISS. So you want to boil it down to telling a good story. And it's all about delivery. You can ruin a bad joke. You can ruin a good joke with bad delivery, or you can tell a bad one in a hilarious way. And what people are, regardless whether it's the technological future that we live in, or the size of the market, algorithms, boogeyman, the algorithm, right? It all comes down to telling stories, because these stories that are very simple and fundamental transcend over time and stand the test of time. As many people have said, there are only 7 stories in the world. I think Stephen Booker said that. And there's even this book called The 7 Basic Plots. if you look closely, you can probably find some pattern or narrative in any work that you've done, any creative work, having one of those scenarios rooted in its bottom, if it was successful, that is, because a bad story is always missing something. So I'm passionate about telling stories. Let's see what it says. 7 types of stories. Here, you can check it yourself. I'm not going to go through all of them. As we go through examples of video production and other things that we've built, I'm going to revert back to this and basically see how we built it, even though it doesn't seem to the viewer that there was much thought behind each of those campaigns. So obviously, rebirth, tragedy, comedy, all of those that you can study yourself. They're ancient, they're universal, they transcend. And before we get into that, I'd like to play a little teaser. Let's start with some action of our old action show reel to get a glimpse of what I mean. I hope the sound is good. These are all just things from different adventures with product placement that look like DIY experiences, but were actually well-engineered campaigns that will go viral. And ultimately, we want to relate to an emotional trigger when we make a story, right? It's what we expect from a good story. Sometimes we don't even like the story because it's not very comfortable outside our expectation of reality, but it stands out, or it can send a message that transcends this current time and resonates later on. So if we're going to speak about disruption and guerrilla marketing, we need to know our story well and how to tell a story in a good way, because ultimately that's what an idea is. So I really do believe that I had a thought last night that ideas are organic. They're born, have their lives, then fade into oblivion, only to be reborn again. They spread like a virus, pretty relevant, and the only fuel that they need is belief. If we're to use ideas to our benefit, if we're to follow them down into the rabbit hole, we need to care for them, nurture them, and grow them. We need to care for an idea and stick to it. It's difficult enough to see the realization of an idea without believing in it, and even more impossible if you don't sell your own ideas to yourself. So doing a guerrilla marketing campaign or a disruptive creative campaign requires ideas with balls, the balls and the backbone to execute and endure this path to the unknown. And we had this idea when we started. 1 second. I think this was the first one, because me and my buddy Ilko Iliev, who's my partner in crime and everything, and a super talented guy, you guys should follow him. He's doing incredible viral things on Instagram. We started off with this little DIY adventure. The point was to have fun and to get our friends from Red Bull involved in some way, since we were all one or another form of an extreme athlete. enthusiasts, and we wanted to work with them. So I believe this was the first one, also a commercial for Leap, the extreme sports social network. The documentary format was sought here, of a bunch of friends having an adventure, doing something crazy. That's also fun. Surprisingly, they're dressed in Nike, they're drinking Red Bull.
So I'm moving to New York, 'cause I've got problems with my sleep. And we're not the same, and I will wear that on my sleeve. So I'm moving to New York, 'cause I've got issues with my sleep. Looks like Christmas came early. Christmas came early for me.
And a little record jam again.
I put 1 foot forward and ended up 30 yards back. And I might lose in touch, or am I just completely off the track? And I don't know why I want to voice this out loud.
So what do we do with this video, and what's the point of it? Now, I think it's very important, even though all of you guys know it, to clarify what guerrilla marketing is. It's good, I think a good idea is to check the definition first, and then give you my team's idea of it. So, as per the Google definition, guerrilla marketing is an advertisement strategy in which a company uses surprise and or unconventional interactions in order to promote a product or service. It is a type of publicity. The term was popularized by J. Conrad Levinson in 1984. So why is it called guerrilla marketing? Why do a lot of people confuse it with gorillas? Guerrilla marketing refers to asymmetric warfare. Basically, it was what the troops, the American troops called the Vietnamese, the Viet Cong guerrilla troops, who fought were greatly outnumbered and outgunned by the Americans, but used surprise, the terrain, local know-how, and unorthodox strategies in order to equalize, the power of both sides. As a result, many people agree that the Vietnam War actually had no actual winners. So this asymmetric warfare, this unorthodox use of weaponry, of your mental arsenal, let it be, is what a company in a market that's oversaturated by competition, by content, wants to hit the jackpot with, and with the use of a small budget, generate a massive effect. Of course, if it was that easy, everybody would be doing it. The truth is, it's a sweet science, and it's a lot of hard work, and there's no actual formula for it. You can only strategize and use the steps. But what I think, for me personally, guerrilla marketing is a mixture of creativity, authenticity, and timing. Timing is really important for that, and sometimes you have a great idea that is even executed in a fine way, but it just doesn't fly because it misses its timing. So it's very time sensitive, and we'll observe that further. But the point of this video that I showed you, which was one of the first, was to generate attention, and we got a little sponsorship from Red Bull, and from there on, we took it to the next step the following way. We reverted to the old 3-act structure of telling a story. So you have the exposition, you have an inciting incident, you have the raising action, a climax. Pretty simple, separated into 3 acts. And the simpler that you keep it, the more obvious is the pain that this content solves. Let's say people are bored, or with either all the ads they're bombarded with, trying to companies trying to sell them aggressively items. And this is more a scenario where we engage opinion leaders who just happen to be wearing that type of content, and they represent freedom, daredevil spirit, and just something creative, something that's non-conformist. So from there on, we get the first video, the one that I showed you. I think it had over, like, if you can see here, it was seen by 5 million people. And it was the beginning of this narrative that we started to develop. So from there on, it was not only about a few people jumping off a rope, it was a story and an attention waiting to get monetized. And we'll get to that as well, because I really want to address some functional design and some brand awareness that can be turned into sales and not just hype. So the second one was this. And not only did we need to raise the level of what we were doing, because again, about emotional triggers we're talking. You have what? You have risk, a life and death situation, combined with free spirit, combined with something unusual, and a large-scale playground that hasn't been used as so before. So the story that we carved around this, even though this was a commercial, was that this is almost like a Banksy social street movement manifesto, where we are the children of Soviet ghost reality, or the participants in this, born and raised in the graveyard of its monumental architecture, and the generation that grew surrounded in Eastern Europe but by all these brutalist buildings. And the point was to turn them into new stepping stones of freedom, and to express the ugly in a beautiful and free way. So transforming ugly skeletons into large-scale playgrounds. And that's the main video. That looks like almost like a bunch of guys got together and did a little documentary for fun over the weekend. But I'll break it down afterwards. One of the few that we got to play around and do some fun. I don't get to jump that often anymore. Само да ви обясня за това. Значи, едно! video, and it had maybe over the course of its life like 15 million views, something like that. I'd like to break down now how this viral effect was reached in a way and what it represented, because immediately after we launched it, we had some inquiries from companies. I think it had like 100,000 views at first, and all these people start contacting you and asking what's the spiel, why did you do that, what happened. It's again the timing of the news that you don't want to miss, and you want to cash in on that and monetize that attention. So it's something that's ephemeral. It has a short expiration date. A viral is not something that will last you. So you need to be really considerate about continuing momentum, about sustaining the hype, about monetizing and getting the most of it when it's at its hottest. So after it was released, that's just one of the one of the coverages. We agree with Insider for first. When you give it to someone first, then another person doesn't want it so much. So it went viral, and you start building this relationship with media and with international media that can serve you in the future. So over the course of a lot of emails, you develop relationship with journalists. It's very important to create your own network that will allow you to produce other virals afterwards. So they cover it like this is the brainchild, but they're showing all the logos if you notice. So you can see logo, Red Bull up over there, Nike. And basically, that's how you get free advertisement across the board. Because if you have to pay for that, it would be ridiculous. And that's what we were selling to our clients, mainly this free airtime that could not be amputated from our video just because we placed it in the key moments, you know. So how was this built to happen? If you notice, it's split again in this 3-act structure. We have first the manifesto. Let's go back to the structure. So we have the exposition, what this is about, the manifesto in Act 1. We have some incident inciting. Some people are climbing the building, something's happening, there's a mystery. Is it legal, is it illegal, is it notorious, what's going on? Then we have a raising action, just about to make the first leap of faith and jump from the building. Then as we're jumping from the building, you're getting towards the actual climax of the video, which is basically this, a pause, a shot of police. They were basically asking one of the organizers to come down. Of course, this was all with municipal permittance, and it wasn't as it seems, but that's how you edit it. It's very important. It's like building a Kickstarter campaign. You can do it like 20 times unsuccessfully with the same footage and hit the right edit once right, so that it raises its goal. So as they came down, I just jumped and I filmed their reaction in order to add this disruption, you know, in the law and the whole bad boy mentality of the video. This was an ad for Burton, Analog, and Red Bull. Different brands required different exposure in the video. So you want to place. You want to keep it simple, stupid, and you want to place important things in the beginning, the middle, and the end, because a lot of people are going to skim, and you want to have your product placement exactly where it won't be amputated. So some athletes drinking right here, Burton. So if the media wants to get the shot out, they're not going to have any useful content whatsoever. So that's how you incorporate it into the video, and then it gets a pass. And the DIY approach, we'll get into that too, because we do slick cinematics as well and big advertising campaigns. The DIY approach often is much more successful because people are tired of being sold directly on a big budget, are tired of paying large corporations, and they want a human story. Ultimately, all we seek is authenticity. Of course, the major brands are now using this approach as well and have been for years. But nobody cares about budgets, about high-tech cameras. You want to be entertained. You want to see or be lied to properly that something is real, that it's authentic and unique. And afterwards, if this is the culmination, we have not one of the most experienced jumpers, but the one that jumps the most fearfully and looks the most sketchy. So the sound goes quiet, and then you have the actual feeling of falling to your death in this death stunt. Of course, everything was triple checked and safe and so on, and all these emotional triggers are played for a particular reason. And now as we get over the climax and towards the plateau and getting ready to walk out of the third act, we can place different attractive and pleasant for the eye imagery of let's say pretty women wearing the branded clothing, young people, athletes, and the whole point is that you can do more aggressive advertising here and show logos because people have already seen something spectacular and you've got the audience attention. And at that point, you can get away with pretty much anything. A turd, 25th frame, phallic symbol, as Tyler Durden from Fight Club would put it. When you've already captured the audience, when you're past that rapport, and when you're already penetrating the subjective psyche, and somebody is mesmerized by this content, you can then start sliding in suggestions. You know, that's the base of any covert or NLP practice, to create a sense of rapport, to draw this golden bubble of attention, to put people in a fairy tale, in the story, in the narrative of this whole happening of these people. And then you can start, you know, suggesting, oh, that's such a nice shirt with the wolf button. It would look really good on me. That cute girl is wearing it. Maybe I can get a cute girl like that. Maybe I can be a cute girl like that. You know, and so on. So continuing here, in order to make this look much more epic than it actually is, we created an artificial cloud. If you notice right here, this was done with a machine that keeps it stale, courtesy to Stoikov. Whoop whoop. It was his idea, one of our collaborators, and it creates this whole sense that it's almost cloud high. And little hacks like that are all that matters. Also, if you notice at the end, there's no logo of Red Bull, even though they were the main sponsors. They said, we want to be positioned only within the video, people drinking it, and not have an actual logo. This created the whole myth for the brand, and a lot of the comments once it went viral were, we wonder how much Red Bull paid them, or these guys got screwed, Red Bull should be really paying them, what an ad that was. So you create mystery around it. It's never good to answer questions, to give anything solid, basically to say, oh, this is how we do it. They did this and they did that. I really hate the type of explanatory videos of such experiences, unless they serve a purpose. And to contradict myself, this is exactly what we did, because we started getting approached by different medias and third parties, and they wanted to know who are those people, why did they do that, what happened. And you don't want to say it's an ad for Red Bull or for Burton. You want to create a whole story around it. So we created a behind the scenes manifesto, and I'll show you what it led to.
Дали ще направя оплашна физиономия във въздуха.
As creative people, walking down the streets of Eastern Europe, we could never neglect the abandoned structures, rotting leftovers from the Soviet era. Our generation was born and raised in the aftermath, surrounded by ghost monumental concrete. We just felt obliged to project our vision on the empty Soviet-era blocks, perhaps to liberate them, to transform them into something beautiful, a large-scale playground. Calculating the trajectory and the system of ropes was a challenge. It took longer than expected. With extreme stunts in unusual locations, you're always facing variables and unknowns. That's what makes the challenge fun. We tested the system of static and dynamic ropes with a block of stone first. The first day, only 2 jumps were attempted, one at night.
Към планината и към уния сгради.
The rigging setup was complete the following day. None of us is in a hurry to meet death, really. We just want to get close enough to feel its breath. Safety first means control over madness. The cops arrived at the scene a few hours after we'd started. They wanted the organizers responsible to come down. I remember saying over the megaphone, "I'll be right there," right before jumping off the building.
Само да ви обясня за това, значи.
The difference between a rope swing and a bungee or a base jump is psychological, especially when performed in an urban environment. Standing on the edge and looking at the asphalt highway down, taking a step and swinging over the cars 18 floors away. The risk? It's like the risk you take every day crossing the street. Except here you triple check every detail. Fear is a choice, and like everything in life, it's all in the head. The moment of the jump. An orgasmic explosion of chemical sensations, a mixture of horror and excitement, both at the same time, and that feeling right after, wishing the fall was longer. We were already looking for the next spot.
Right, so why am I digging into this so much? Even though it's old news now for us. Because what I ultimately want, another important factor of this is to present yourself like you take that you take your work very seriously, but you don't take yourself very seriously. That always sells better than trying to be a hero, on TV. So with this, ultimately, you don't want to sell a product with Guerrilla. You want to sell yourself. You want to sell the people that are in it, the human story. And you want to let the product gravitate in the background ever so slightly to create its own legend and mystery. And this thing is also the path of how to gain clients later, because I'm pretty sure that a lot of people, as we were wondering, were thinking how to basically convince the client to allow you to come up with a disruptive creative, with a guerrilla, with a viral idea, and risk the reputation over something crazy. You have 2 approaches, in my humble opinion, and those are either build a portfolio through good ideas. Basically, come up with good ideas and look for the appropriate parties. Start looking for brands that fit this idea, start offering it to them, show them similar things, present them a serious business plan, a serious plan of action, and a risk assessment ratio of what rewards it can bring and how much it can cost, which for a major brand won't be a big expense, but the reward might be significant. So that's really important, I think, to get it before clients actually start coming to you and hiring you to do Guerrilla, because that's what actually started happening afterwards, after a few of those. And I really think it's important to assess this ratio, the risk ratio, very well. This was not done with you know, somebody who just decided to jump off a building. Obviously, we had the proper professionals. It's not something childish or inconsiderate. What you want to hit is this emotional trigger again. Here, we're playing with fear, with sexy, you know, life and death situations, something that is immediately a trigger for attention. And then we see which brands will fit that. To carry on, for example, the next one that we did was for Audi Q7, and it wasn't so scary and so dangerous. Before I go to it, I forgot one thing. So I showed you the behind the scenes footage for one reason. We created that to further solidify the story and carry the momentum of the rope swing. And then it led to this. Actually, televisions started paying us to air our footage
ブルガリアの首都
per second.
ソフィア。こちらは18階建て、
Yeah, the Japanese
高さおよそ
really love
70
it.
メートルのビルです。その屋上に立っている人がいると思ったら、飛び降りた。びっくり。他の人も次々とジャンプ。ロープにぶら下がってビルの間でブランコみたいに揺れている。なんなんだ。
They even wrote in Bulgarian, чудно.
実はこれロープスイングというパフォーマンスなんだとか。人が飛び降りたのはこの位置。ビルとビルの間にあった
as we can see, a good story translates over borders, stands the test of time,
人がビルの間でスイングできるようにしていたんです。良い子は真似しないでね。パフォーマンスを支えたのはロープの扱いに詳しい登山家やスタントマンなど40名以上。1ヶ月テストを重ねて撮影しま
Sure,
した。
it's fun, it's wicked, but it's in no way something that did not require a lot of thought, a lot of planning, good timing, luck, and also keeping the momentum going. So ultimately,
Половината е начин да може да стигне до най-голям брой от хора, което и това се случва. И идеята е, че там сме, нали, както хората казват, луди глави, адреналин, обичаме и така нататък, но на никой не му се умира. Да. Искаме нещата да са проверени.
and you want your content to grow beyond the brand, beyond you ultimately. It's very important to nurture those relationships and to continue the momentum once you strike a chord. So have in mind that just getting something noticed is not enough to actually monetize on it, because this started bringing in real money aside from the exposure and the great results that we did for, you know, for Red Bull and Burton. And further on, we started getting approached from other companies and agencies, such as Audi for their new Q7. And so this was the breaking of the internet. And we continued going with the DIY versus the cinematic approach, which both have their pros and cons, of course, and should be timed and planned accordingly. And this was the lifestyle, extreme sports little video that we conjured with a bunch of athletes, went around traveling a little bit in the sense of Devon Supertramp. You've seen his videos online, no doubt. So that was product placement, Audi Q7. We actually even crashed it. Kudos to Audi. Thank you guys for being so cool and not minding it. But it was very off-roady. So again, a lot of young opinion leaders, extreme sports, beautiful shots, you know, light atmosphere. You want to sell the summer spirit, and you want to place key points that are going to be interesting for the media's that connections that you've already established. You know, you can't have the whole video, which is much longer. You can't have the whole video viral because that's not how it works. You will have certain segments of it. This, I believe, had 2.7 million views and was covered by People Are Awesome, where you can get clear shots of the Audi and of the blob that followed. You can find it on Facebook. I think it's on our Studio Rubik page. Again, you're telling a story, you're appealing to emotions, you're creating a moment, and this is all tied with a mini site, with the product placement, with the selling of content for top and tails afterwards. And that's a good way to get noticed both by media and by sponsors or clients, potential future clients. First you approach them, then they start approaching you. But you need to be creative, you need to be committed, and you need to believe in what you're doing. That is why process is basically king. And whether you're going to do something that is homemade looking, or you're going to have a giant budget, the difference between these two is both very thin in what results they can achieve, and also both of them require an enormous amount of work. So you shouldn't be put off by budgets, by cameras. Oh, I can't do that because we don't have the budget. I mean, good ideas don't cost much. You know, there's always room for another good story in the world, regardless of the budget and the algorithm boogeyman. Yep. So once we started getting approached and started doing other things, I believe you've seen this commercial. Kudos to DDB and the English partners.
Those fat cat commission takers wouldn't want you to see it. They wouldn't want you to see how they bathe in a bathtub made of gold, filled with gold. Even the sink plug is gold. Or how they make paper planes with money. Wipe themselves with money. Your money. Your money. Your money. Because you are paying for things that should be free. Introducing zero commission stock trading by Trading 212. Join the revolution with the UK's #1 trading app.
Right. So this was kind of revolutionary when it came out. Trading 212 had the first of all of their competitors this policy where the first 6 transactions are not charged. They don't have a commission, and they're a very disruptive company and wanted to have unusual and unorthodox campaigns. So after this one, we were hired to shoot this video, which continues the momentum of the commercial and continues basically the narrative, because that's what ultimately a good campaign is. It's a story that has its own narrative, which you carry forward into something more than just one video. It could be a series of mini clips. The whole campaign you can, if it's successful, you can keep spinning it more and more. So we had to go to Frankfurt because of Brexit and present the zero commission trading policy. Basically make the brand stand out in an interesting way. So we shot the normal Trading 212 kiosk and another phony one, a guerrilla marketing one, across, which is filled with the actors from the commercial. The old commissioners protesting that they cannot eat enough lobsters anymore now that we have commissions, and disrupting the whole expo. I don't know how they got away with this one, protesting famous speakers and boycotting. But because of such disruptive campaigns, Trading 212 is currently the biggest trading platform in the UK. We like to believe that we had a tiny role in that as well. And of course, this continued with photo sessions, with GIFs and pre-rolls. You can continue to spin this topic more and more and more as the campaign goes. And ultimately, what I want with this course or this lecture, which is the promise of such course, is to study and examine the best practices of doing quality disruptive creative that really shakes the whole environment and creates a positive change, brings new developments, both artistic, innovative, and commercial, but also to present hacks on how young aspiring creatives can get into this line of work, how they can build their brand or their small company, and how they can nurture these relationships with brands that they approach first as newbies and later on as trusted partners. So I really see this also as a discussion. Feel free to ask any questions if you guys have. Let's make it into a dialogue. There's nothing set in stone. And the different approaches for this is both, I think you've probably seen the commercial of dollarshaveclub.com to finish the DIY approach, why we chose that. This is an ad that raised a Kickstarter campaign which ultimately led to the company being a $1 billion company.
Mike, founder of dollarshaveclub.com. What is dollarshaveclub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are f***ing great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis.
And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had 1 blade and polio. Looking good, pop-up! Stop paying for shave tech you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship them right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are dollarshaveclub.com, and the party is on.
So yeah, this wasn't very expensive, but it had all the needed ingredients to really stand out and create something authentic. That's what really makes it work, is the authentic comedic vibe, the kind of polite fuck you that they're showing to usual, similar ads. So I really do believe that it's very important to consume such content, to watch, to look at similar campaigns, to read a lot, to play games, and then ultimately to try to tell your own stories, whether they're brand related or project related, to try to tell them true. And after you take in all that common knowledge and culture, which is Captain Obvious advice, of course, you grind it through your own machinery, and you reproduce a baby idea
a newborn that should ring new, authentic, or nostalgic. You know, it should be a reference to something, and it may not be something the world has not seen, but it might be something the world just needs at this point. So timing and relevance are important, and in the words of my university professor, bad writers borrow, good writers steal. By steal, of course, I mean taking in influences and producing your imprint on a great idea, on one of the 7 stories and 7 plots that have gone since the beginning of time. That's all we can do. So getting towards the process, which is one of the most important parts of the whole thing, is actually doing the work. Once you've convinced the client to take a leap of faith, once you've convinced the client to take a leap of faith with you onto doing something unusual and crazy, then you have the actual work ahead of you. And if you don't believe in that idea, as I said, this process won't be fun at all. It will be tedious, it will be confusing. It's very important that you and your team are on the same page and that you guys are really passionate of what you're doing and do not mind late hours, overtime, hardships, negativity, and so on. So I can give you my my path of how I got started, and I moved into guerrilla marketing and into that line of work, which was counterintuitive at first, but it can probably save you some. It can save you some detours, I think. So I used to live in Amsterdam back in the day, and I was gravitating around this school called Rietveld Academy with some artistic friends there. I was writing a book. We were living in squats where you had to take over a building if it wasn't occupied for 1 year and 1 day, and the law in Holland stated that you could basically move in and take over. And it doesn't belong to the public, and it doesn't belong to the owner. It's kind of a no man's land. And I met a lot of artistic people there. I was writing this book, and I was doing photos all the time. But somehow I couldn't, none of them could see, of my friends, how to make money out of this art or out of what was happening, even though it was exciting or scandalous or artistic, whatever. So in this Rietveld Academy, they would always say that before you're a big name, whether in art or in any other form, I think it applies as well, you need to do everything from the garbage. Use all the materials you can from the trash, recycle, reuse. The whole career of Quentin Tarantino's built on homages, on tributes, and on taking other people's work and juxtaposing it with other genres. So what I did was I juxtaposed my Amsterdam experience into this exhibition when I came back to Bulgaria called Amsterdam, story of bicycles, flying houses, and cats, I think. And it was Alice in Wonderland, Amsterdam through the prism of Alice in Wonderland. And all these photos I had done for my exhibition, I placed among certain living statues, performance art. For example, Queen of Spades and Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland, presented as the red light district, ladies of the night. And different installations mixing genres, and it got some attention. So in order to fund this, I went to a sponsor and asked for alcohol for a bar. I asked for some money, and we kind of brandalized it. I was obsessed with Banksy at the time, who was the epitome of brandalizing, mocking the whole branding industry, the advertising industry, street art, mixing everything, selling paintings that disintegrate themselves. So I was really fascinated by this, by the whole notion of how much this art and taste cost. And the next one I did, the Living Museum, again, we're moving towards branding. Just like with the rope swings, a narrative was beginning to develop. So The next one was called Living Socialism, and it was the natural representation, basically, of the generation that grew up after the Soviet Union in its aftermath. And it's the image of the Soviet times presented through the eyes of the street generation, built on false stories of missing bananas, and I mean, just the whole juxtaposition of generations. And we had dictators that walked on stilts, Stalin, Mao, Castro, and we also had the Commissar Vanishes, a very famous installation where you could be like at a ferry and vanish with the commissars of Stalin that were erased from history by him, falsified, basically using real political platforms and social topics presented in a fun kind of theme park way. And the timing, again, I'm saying timing is very important, hit really well with the dossiers of the Bulgarian diplomats at the time, which came out, and it revealed that a lot of them had been agents for national security, Državna Sigurnost. So I got coverage not only nationally, but also from France Press and the Washington Post. And now that this was going somewhere, my whole question was, how can I make money from this? Because, you know, okay, you got the attention, and then you don't know how to monetize it. And it was all coming along nicely because we believed in the idea with my team into committing, enjoying the process, but the monetizing part was missing. And at first we applied for some funds, for some European programs, for local cultural programs, which, as it proved, required a lot of lobbying. And even though we were favorites and championed by the people who worked in the program, in the end we never got to move past the real champions that are favored. So what I did was I used my business education and turned to the corporate sector. Basically, I started knocking on doors and asking around, and I thought, what topic for this living museum, living web, live display of time and space, what topic is lucrative? What would bring you know, funds? What is a developing area? And of course, IT was at the top of this list. So that's how Living Web was born. Living Web is a live display of digital space, and it's the point where advertising, technology, and art cross paths. At first, it was only a concept, but in the end, it turned out to be this giant labyrinth festival where you walk in as yourself, and you can experience the live representations of websites. For example, a YouTube stage where actors would act impromptu any search of the users of the living web, which are the visitors basically. They would play an instrument or dance a viral video, and if the search is inappropriate, they would show a 404 sign. You can put likes and dislikes on the whole exhibition. You have a live Google that answers any question, who is linked, you know, to the internet. And all these installations and artificial intelligence started attracting interests of companies such as, you know, Sony, Comedy Central, Cisco. So I need a lot of money to make this, and I basically sold alongside with my team every installation to a different company, and that's how the whole business with guerrilla marketing ultimately began. So we have the Google elder on a throne of books with his beard of cables. That's the Unicredit logo, if you can notice here. It's a bank. They get a venue at this. You have another one for the game level, which is basically you stand before a remote control and an avatar in an LED costume shows up. And when you press the forward button, the live avatar goes forward across the 8-bit level. When you press backwards, they go backward. But when you press the middle button, they do a flip because they're actually parkour athletes in these costumes. Shout out to Ilko and Dido. And It's not how good they are, it's how well you operate them over the level. And it was augmented reality, my desire for my interest in augmented reality, with the notion that guerrilla marketing is really possible. We got, in the end, out of nothing, out of an idea that nobody believed will happen, we raised around 100K in cash and tech devices such as augmented projectors, VR, and so on. We had a race of remote control, not remote control, but artificial intelligence robots, which were brought from all around the country. And the whole venue could be witnessed from different points because we scattered screens in the shape of an eye all around the city. And a person at the exhibition of the Living Web had a camera on his head, navigating through the labyrinth of installations and experiences. And for example, you're at the park and you see this screen that was basically done over Skype, the live stream back then. And you can tell the screen, move left, go right, do this, pick this object, experience it from different parts of the city, turning the whole city into a large playground, a theater stage, basically. Finally, these were basically the brands that we attracted for this, both international and local. I will show you 1 second, please. Okay, so these were the sponsors, both locally and internationally. And we approached them, some live, others via email, and we nurtured contacts up to a point where that's, what, 7 years ago. Now with Viacom, which are the owner of Comedy Central, we're even discussing, we've been in negotiation for a while, of them acquiring us and becoming, Studio Rig becoming a part of Viacom. So all these little moves and these nurtured connections, they add up and they create your pool. And how did I, alongside my team, manage to raise that kind of money with these sponsors over a concept and a logo and idea? Well, I needed disruption. So this was basically the video that I used in order to pitch them. And it's called Live Surfing. It's very, very DIY and crude, but it was this initiative that people could go and download stickers and experience their digital lives in a more literal context. Basically see themselves from the side. I think the topic is more relevant than ever. So that's Rodan. Rodan, loading, please wait. That's Rodan again. We almost got arrested here. Like sticker. That's Van Gogh. The Museum of Dali was also liked. So, and slowly but surely we're going towards the branding part of things. As you all see, all these projects that I'm showing you are first and foremost built on an idea, developed into a narrative, and completed into a story. And this narrative is later on continued and carried over as to milk the whole attention as much as possible and lead to other things. So it's very important not just to produce one thing, but to be thinking what comes next after it. Even knowing that you might not succeed because the chances of such a campaign are slim, you still need to plan ahead. You still need to have different moves and different scenarios. And parts and form it into something complete. So that's how we get to the branding side of things, which is kind of our bread and butter. And it's pretty much the same thing as writing a book or a short story or even a song that delivers a series of emotions that can be translated into an image in your head. So how we do it, basically. Brands are organisms. I think we cleared that much. 1 second. Okay, so in order to evolve or transcend an organism, you need to do the following thing. You need to have someone that's willing to take that step and is already at a place where they can afford to do it, and you're not starting over. Here, for example, I'll present one of our rebrand campaigns, because one thing is to write your own story and to start from scratch and expect something to happen. Another thing is to work with an already developed narrative and to take it to the next level, basically taking something good and making it great. And the whole process, again, reverting back, is very important, I think, to enjoy the process, to take it one step at a time, and to base it on this. That's at least my really stripped down process, how I like to approach things. So you choose one of the plots. For example, we had what you saw with the rope swings, the quest, where the protagonist and companion set out and acquire an important object or get a location. They face temptations and other obstacles on the way and return victorious. Or a voyage and return, you know. You choose one and you try to stick to it, and you try not to deviate the message too much. You try to basically stay in line and not pivot, because an idea is a virus, like we said, and it spurs little tiny tentacles that bring new ideas, that open new doors that may be interesting but are taking you further away from the point of arrival where you want to be with you, your project, or your client. And so after assessing this again, we go back to an actual representation. Once we have, let's say we're faced with a brief from a client, our particular method of work in my company and the way I like it is the following. We structure the whole rebranding campaign in a series of steps where we don't do anything before the first two. The first one is discovery, basically goal, time frame, brand introduction, references, getting to know who you're working with, getting to believe in their philosophy, then seeing what the competition is doing, the marketing research, the SWOT, and only then starting to draw, to come up with concepts, brand, Bible, logo, type, slogan, buyer persona, etc. And only then the content creation. And only then in the content creation can we be talking about some disruption. But this disruption is planted as a seed early on from the very discovery, and you want it to grow into something positive. It's like you give to it and it eats it and it becomes what you've given it. So I will show you this brand Bible. Basically the client was a fashion label, Akasha, pretty cool clothes. Contemporary, kind of off-white, Yohji Yamamoto sector, and it's the 6th biggest store in Etsy, but it had kind of plateaued. It wanted to take it to new markets and evolve the brand into what it had become, you know, something high-end and contemporary, to reach new price levels and new audiences without losing much of its old. So not so easy, but this is basically the brand Bible, and by Bible I mean Bible and not book, because I really truly believe that brands are little religions, and they should have their own Bibles. So making the logo, first we had this research of checking out, it's hundreds and hundreds of pages. I'm just showing you just a little bit of it, and I don't have the time to go into it real deep. But we have the old way the logos were done and the new tendencies going toward minimal. We have the old logo of the company, and upon applying some sacred geometry, because Akasha means ether, and the Akasha scriptures, ether is the fluid in which, or the matter in which the planets float. And boom, this is the new logo. It works both with and without, like the swoosh of Nike. And it's lingually responsive. We start to create this narrative where it's like this in US and Canada, it's like that in Russia, it's like that in the Czech Republic, Japan, among other brands. That's how it looks on clothing, some mood boards. And now the challenge. In order for us to reach new audiences without losing the old one and to raise prices, we learned that we need to break the brand into several sub-brands, Akasha remaining the main one, Aigo being the high-end, just like Giorgio Armani and Emporio Armani are two different price level companies of the same brand, and brands of the same company, and Arise, which is the sportswear, somewhere like Yohji Yamamoto. So we went so deep into this over the last year that we created this world of Akasha, which basically presents a secret society that's astral in its apparel, some alien deities who dress from this Akasha universe and develop the word unfuckwittable. We went and created 3 planets, which represent the different philosophy of each brand while keeping the main feel of the brand. So the Aigo, the high-end brand, is divine apparel, alien god, complex language, cosmic skin, toys sent from above, extravagant clothing. We created their business card. It was my main inspirations were Blade Runner and the movies of Nicholas Winding Refn, but we took it from the very first card to the last video that I will show you, and that's what the site started to become. The slogan, because it was aimed at women, was My Cult, or My Clit, to be more provocative as the industry allows. And it was aimed at women, 80% was the target. And women who are not only powerful, but their sexuality is presented not as a tool of appeal for a man, but as their own weaponry that they wield, regardless, some androgynous alien sexual energy. And the female line is Ether, the male one is Eat Him. And that's for the Aigo brand. You can't sit with us. And the whole brand experience, I've always been a sucker for the kind of the Steve Jobs gimmicks where he pulls a computer out of an envelope. I mean, who isn't? But we wanted to include this brand experience in these very geometric minimal boxes, where once you open them, you have the signature holographic puddle-like bag. So each article of clothing comes in an ego-friendly, because it has edge, and it's radical, reusable, and recognizable, a holographic zip bag. Those are some photos from the Arise. Urban, fearless, demigods, fuck your beauty standards, basically edgy as it gets. And we create this world of neon. Each brand has its particular coloring. This one is pink for Arise, for Akasha is green yellowish, and even the tags are made like airplane, quantum crew, apparel tags in the seeming nothingness of space. So you're building a world, you're building a story, you're building its characters, its narrative. This story here is setting based, it's not character based. And in this setting, we start dropping characters that people can relate with. So out of this campaign, we did another photo session the photo session reflects the mood of feeling lost, of Blade Runner, of our current times. And those are the garment pieces from Akasha, which are very avant-garde and contemporary. We used Tani Ilieva and Eli Bineva for this, and that was for the first My Cult kind of campaign. And out of this campaign, out of that logo, out of that slogan, out of that mood and feel, what comes is this. The cinematic ad for the launch of the campaign. So this is the director's cut cinematic for this, and it's currently, it was just at London, except for London Fashion Week, fashion short films contests, but because of Corona, we're all on hold. I hope you all guys are super healthy and mentally stable at home as much as can be. And also, if you're liking what you're seeing, and if you find it useful in any way, I am being reminded that you should vote, and you can find this code right here on the Slido, code GMO01, and you can vote for this lecture if you find it interesting, so that we can make the course no pressure, you know, we're moving as it goes, so playing it by ear. So this looks like, I'm not showing this to kind of boast and present a slick ad that we've done, because this is in contrast to what I've been showing you thus far. This I'm showing you in order to break it down and to display the previous points that I've made, that this too has been based on those pillars of storytelling before anything else. And the whole campaign is broken down into many subforms. We have someone who can infiltrate a similar brand fashion show and potentially get arrested as to draw attention to the brand. We have different disruptive strategies, but this in particular, the classic, the one that sets the tone, we wanted to make it look like a trailer for a movie or for a game or for something that's happening, something bigger, and then it's a fashion line. Create the mystery around the whole brand and the rebranding. And it's based on, just like in Tarantino, on a lot of trivia and cultural references. So first, the mirror ball is like a planet because it's the Akasha planet. Then we find her lost in her trivial, mundane existence in the club, bored. She sees the white rabbit, Trinity kind of woman who confuses her and kind of gets her a little bit out of gives her the red pill. She doesn't know why she wants to follow, but she has to. And each frame, each shot, just like before, just like the ones I showed you, it's well thought through. So she's suffocated by people right here, if you notice. And around the white rabbit Trinity woman, there's a lot of space. So this is to show that she's been repressed, you know, by society. She's suffocating in her own environment right here. She has a hard time moving. The transition from this part is the same as the transition of the dress on the next one. It's a fashion editorial after all. We have a long shot here, being a metaphor of a catwalk. And slowly and mysteriously we try to bring in the other, or hint about the other lines, the arise, the more sportswear, with these guys that follow on top the cult, my cult of Akasha. And we have the yellow-green color, just like in Gattaca, just like in The Matrix, just like in a lot of films, it's like color-coded. So she follows her, and just like in the Act 3 structure, we have the following thing. We have some summary, and we're moving towards the exposition. Right here. So we're on the exposition, inciting accident, she meets her. Then we have the midpoint, raising attention, raising action, and finally going towards the climax where things start getting out of control. And Alice in this wicked wonderland is everything in her body is screaming that she should leave, but she decides to stay. Again, the green color. So we have here the DMT kind of moment. Suddenly she's the mannequin. We have the branding in the back that slightly hinted the triangle, which is a jewelry that they sell. And when she touches it, if you notice, she sees herself in the mirror reflection as her future self, powerful and independent, unfuckwithable. A little bit of Sabrina. Boom! What was that? Right here, it was the Studio Rubik. Okay, I'm giving out secrets. That's the Studio Rubik 25th frame we've entangled into this. Oopsie. All about disruption. So now we present the branding in many different languages. She opens the astral door. And because it's my cult, or my clit, how the hashtag was going, even the portal is labial. All these little Easter eggs make up for a myth and legend you're going to create around the brand. And even if they don't work at the moment that you do them, if you keep going and you continue the momentum as I've told, they're going to pay off ultimately. And they're going to bring in dividends and attention because people are going to go back, they're going to search for them, they're going to talk about it, they're going to speculate whether it's accidental or not. And finally, she's in her element, powerful. Poof. Okay. So this all has been explained by me, and it's subliminal, but that's how I do believe that's how proper creative should be addressed. And if you want to do, whether it's branding, ideas, or some stories that stand not only the test of time, but are accepted internationally. I really hate this notion where people say, it's good enough for Bulgaria or for its region. There's no such thing. It's either good or it's bad. There's nothing in between. You can't compare yourself to where you're at. You have to compare yourself to what you find really amazing. That really is it. There's only one benchmark and no other ones. Karl May was a German guy that never went to the States, who wrote some of the, like Winnetou and some of the best cowboy novels of the time, and a lot of his readers were really disappointed when they found out that he hadn't been to the States. So imagination is not limited by anything except its own narrow-mindedness sometimes. And this here is basically, I'll leave it running, the whole process of what we've done. In order to create this, we went around their factories. We studied what they were doing, the whole circle of production of the clothing. We wrote storyboards. Even the music was devised in such a way, the synth wave was composed on analog synthesizers by Tsetso and Mukata, our colleagues, in such a devoted way that they experienced the whole narrative only through sound. And this is not something that gets understood by the end user, but it makes a difference, and when you hear it, you don't know why it's working. So I really think that commitment and giving it your best and really believing that idea is super important. So as you can see, those are all the mood boards and what we've based it on. How much research and work of a giant team has been put into that. The whole rebranding of their site. So this is pretty much how you begin a rebrand, I think, and how you move into content. And once we're into the area of content, this is basically the notion of getting an idea. In this course, I really want to address, maybe over not one but more than one sessions, the importance of proper brainstorming. A lot of people don't know how to brainstorm. I've really noticed that, and it's not something you can have innate knowledge for. It's something you learn over many unsuccessful and successful projects. Brainstorming for such a project, or for disruption, or for functional results, is not something you do with your friends while getting high. It's not in pivoting a million ideas. It's having the discipline to stick to the research that you've done before, and ideally to come out of the think tank with a maximum of 2 concepts that you all agree on. You and your team, you need to be on board, and out of those 2, either run them through a focus group or discuss them with your client, and decide to make one concept really fly and have a go with it. So this, of course, is very hard when you have a bunch of creatives who all have very well-formed and exercised opinions, ideas. One idea opens another, and you're obviously risking doing something innovative for the client as well, so the stakes are higher. And I do believe that it's very important to have the discipline to say no, to cut lines, and to stop coming up with concepts when you have something already. So getting an idea and selling the idea. How to brainstorm, making the quality. Again, we fall back to KISS, and we fall back to the emotional triggers. And I'll leave this running. Hopefully it's not too boring. It's showing you the whole our whole process. And for example, these lights, if you notice how they were putting, I will say it again, good writers borrow, good writers, bad writers borrow, good writers steal. This is very important. Same applies to artists and etc. Like in particular this shot where she is in a circle surrounded by lights and the camera is going in a circle. I took this frame from the movie Only God Forgives. The setup for the Akasha ad was the same, the camera, everything was the same as for Blade Runner, so we did have a budget. So it's okay to have the proper inspirations. Let me get back to the video just to show you something, because we do want to trace the process and not just the result, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so we have this moment here, the pivotal scene, the climax of our 3 acts, which finally we're in her head, we're her. And only in this frame do we become the mannequin, because we see her from the point of view of the inanimate object before she becomes inanimate, right here, as she's turning. She's seeing her. Boom, boom, boom. This shot. Somebody is looking her, so you get the sense that this is a person, but then you see that it's a mannequin. So it creates an even more unexpected, eerie feeling. And this, I got the inspiration while writing it from Only God Forgives. Hail Nicholas Winding Refn. So it's okay to take. So if you notice, the lighting on the ceiling is the same kind of style and the same LED tubes. And then we have this totally different narrative, the same kind of feeling of anthropomorphic personification of some deity, because this character in the movie plays God. Ultimately, he's untouchable. And it's something off, something weird, something just not right, uncanny. We have our beautiful main character who's powerful, who has no doubt in himself, and then this, it's again about trigger, and this story, Only God Forgives, is the same topic as the Akasha story, which is ultimately a story of rebirth. Through the change of style, through the abandonment, through letting go. In the end, the main character of Ryan Gosling also repents, but here he gets his ass kicked by God. Very good movie, I recommend it highly. We'll be using a lot of cinema examples in the work as well. Okay, so right here, going back to my first point, we go to our 7 basic plots. What do we have? Rags to riches, class, rebirth, definition. An event forces the main character to change their ways and often become a better individual. So she leaves her environment, she follows this woman, she becomes something powerful, even though it's scary at first, transformation. And this is where I've been going the whole time, towards transformation and towards adaptation. Just as I adapted my living museum ideas for the IT sector with Living Web and find a way to monetize that, just as we managed to monetize the swings, the rope swings. In the words of Jack Kerouac, change is the only constant. And I really do believe that people said it before and after him, but that kind of only solidifies the claim, right? Change is the only constant. So, as we were going, now that we've gotten the idea and we're flying with the idea, the next step would be selling the idea. And first and foremost, sell it to yourself. Then sell it to your team. And you better sell it well, so that not just everyone is on board, but everyone is surfing, hopefully, alongside you. You know? I used to be head of creative for this company in the UK, and I remember my then boss and now friend Omid saying that when I expressed some doubts in the project of this designer clothing that we were developing through disruptive practices, he says, you're either on board, you're either in the car, or you're out. I'm driving, but if you don't believe in it, it's impossible that we succeed. And it's a very Bulgarian mentality. That's what he told me. I find it Eastern European in general, that something is not going to happen. It's hard as it is. Oh, this will fail. Nobody will like it, and la-di-da. If you have that mentality, either amputate it or never give it a try. I mean, you're never going to succeed to do anything that's out of the box with the cliche and disrupt really the status quo. And so first and foremost, sell it to yourself, then do a really good job to sell it to your team, and only then should you try to sell the idea to the client. And by sell, I mean fight for it. Now, let me get this straight. This course is in no way attempting to teach you trade secrets of the account and how to please the client. If you're aiming, and hopefully you are, if you found this course interesting, but if you're aiming to create original creative content or disrupt the market, media status quo, to drive it to innovation, to change, to variation, to a cross-field collaboration across, universal audience, says you need to stand your ground. And I do not mean argue with the client unless arguing is the price of withstanding pressure and ultimately delivering results for your client and for the brand. But I mean to have the vision, the backbone, and in the words of my of one fellow New Yorker, the testicular fortitude to see your idea realized. Collaborating with others is very important for guerrilla warfare and for guerrilla marketing. Using the environment, taking advantage of timing. This is what makes the difference and what compensates for the budget. For example, back in the day, it's a very early example, when Pocahontas came out, the studio released the movie for free in Central Park, and this generated so much publicity that ultimately they even if they paid for it, it saved them millions of dollars. But the first premiere was free, so no tickets. So you should be ready to sacrifice something. You should be ready to risk it, like at the trader video I showed you, for example. The Trading 212 video, this with the commissioners. So you risk paying for not one, but 2 kiosks at the World Trading Expo, which were very expensive, shipping a team of people, filming there, only to have something that could be like a theme park mascots experience if not done properly. But in the end, people thought it was for real, and it attracted free attention from the media, and basically, right here, free media coverage and interviews. So it really paid off. And again, to go back to the bad writers borrow, good writers steal, right after this, eToro, which is the main competitor of Trading 212, released a guerrilla campaign on its own, which is more or less the same thing. eToro. Yep, right here.
What the hell?
So again, somebody's eating from your commissions. It's similar but not the same. So don't be afraid to pick up on already successful
5 hidden
ideas.
cameras. 2 actors. 100% happiness.
Fresh made donuts today.
Or is it?
Fancy donut? Can I have jam, please? Cream donut, please.
What the hell?
What the fuck?
What just happened?
Oh, hell no.
Did you just buy that?
You won't even notice, it's very small.
I want a new one. You don't have to buy.
That's my commission.
But it's out of my donut. I was expecting 100% of a donut.
What the fuck are you doing?
Just how the world works.
Shut the fuck up, I don't want that. That's disgusting. No way. Take this back.
If I pay for something, I should get the full thing.
We have to take a bit of commission, otherwise...
See, she's walked away.
Don't let commissions bite into your 100% stocks with 0% commission.
You've got a little commission right there.
Yeah, so I think this is also brilliant, even though it's rubbing on the same issue. It's a competitor,
and also it's hitting the same emotional triggers. But it's fine. I mean, the world it really has enough room for good ideas, and just because you're not first, it doesn't mean that you can't carry the momentum as long as you're not banal. So yeah, fight for the idea once you get it, and more often than not, you will have a case where a client will be on the same page with you and they would want to do it, but will get cold feet midway. So try to avoid giving into that, you know. Second. You will start a campaign and you will spend half the budget, and they will say like, oh, it's not going so good, or maybe it was a big risk, or maybe someone along the lines that wants to bring this huge olden organism of a big corporation to new forms of media and experience, new channels, maybe wants to work with you, but it's not so easy because there's many people on the line. You should try to hold your ground for as long as you can, and basically avoid giving into that, because once you start, before starting a campaign, you should really speak frankly with the client and advise them of the risks and calculate the risk-reward ratio and really see if this thing is worth it. But if you're doing it proper. There's no way back, because going backwards, holding your ground, because going backwards, you just don't stop midair. That's it. Rule number one of doing a backflip, you don't want to say stop when you're with your head upside down, because you fall on it usually. So in my personal calculations, if you stop midway a campaign where you're already going for something and you're running with an idea, you will lose the budget, not only the budget thus far, you would lose three things: the budget thus far, the potential of its reward, so the opportunity loss, and you will lose also the timing of repeating this again, because they're often really timing based. And in the words of Lord Baelish Littlefinger from Game of Thrones, chaos is not a pit, chaos is a ladder. So in guerrilla warfare, just like coronavirus is now, you know, an idea hive for memes and for creativity and for new businesses, you know, starting, even though it's a very, very negative and troubled time, it is a catalyst for creativity. Take advantage of that and really try to adapt, because one thing I know for sure, and that change is the only constant. Even for brands, there's no guarantee that it will succeed, but if you stop midway, you lose these three things. And if you carry on, you might lose this budget that you've already decided to sacrifice, or you might lose face in front of the client. But you know, you can't play it safe and expect to win the princess and slay the dragon in the end. If you want to do something, you gotta go for it. And yeah, so brands are just like that, organisms that were once ideas which grew to be stories. Few of them outgrow human lives, few of them even less outgrow entire generations. Yet as big and successful as they come, they're never ever immune to the rule of adaptation. That which does not adapt ultimately perishes. Today, more often than not, you'll find brands that are evolving their philosophy, that are open to changing their narrative and updating their brand Bibles. Because what do organisms do? They want to be. You know, they want to survive and to thrive beyond the cycle of a mode and the flicker of a mood. Stronger, longer, motion is lotion. Not my words, but those of Joe Rogan, or a guest. I stole it from there. And ultimately, the brand message wants to cure universal pain of its target consumer, and
pass on the virus of their message. And these guerrilla warfares are just different ways to access this stream that is now oversaturated and blocked, this subconsciousness of the buyer, and that's been oversaturated with impressions and with standard campaigns. So in order to really keep going and continuing the life of your message, you need to be creative as a brand, as a client, and as a creator. And with that being said, just don't stop midair. Like a very famous viral, I don't know if you've seen it, it's with Dean Potter, who jumped with his dog on a wingsuit, and people were very, you know, disgusted that what they're doing, what a person is doing to a dog. But actually, the dog had such a fun. When you see the end of the video, he's ecstatic. So yeah, shake it till you make it. You don't have to fake it; you can shake it. But that's the question here. We're getting towards how to build a disruptive portfolio, how to reach and convince brands to make that jump with you, how to get going. You're a creative guy or a gal, and you have experience with graphic design, you have video skills, you understand marketing, you're even a small team, and you have great ideas, but you don't know how to get them to clients. So my advice is the following, and before anything else, I really would like to rub it in. Sell your ideas to yourself and to your team first. And I always tell that to our designer Yana, who's the best. Big up for Yana, that she should first sell it to herself, whether an element is redundant or it's over the top or something is just cute, and everything in your concept should be justified, and you need to be there because it has to, not because it's just there. So editing is a big part of it, not just first thought, best thought, in the words of Kerouac, but also in the words of Ginsberg. So yeah, if you want to get this really build a portfolio, you can start backwards and come up with ideas and approach different companies. Follow also people that are doing interesting things and disruptive campaigns. Follow them through social media. It's very easy. Offer your free work. Share them. Always suggest yourself to do something, even if it's starting from the bottom up, and be a part of a larger team. Read a lot of books, play a lot of games, devise games, scenarios. Reading books is very important, even though I think it's a dying media, but it really formulates well structure, which is everything, how you're going to deliver your message. And also another thing is really to take part in as a creator. Sometimes you need to be in the advocate mentality. Once you get those gigs, that you just close your eyes and believe in the philosophy of the brand. Basically, you have to be an impartial advocate who serves nothing but the idea and accepts the brand's religion. If not, you can say no to the devil and choose to work for companies that fall in line with your system of beliefs and your moral compass. But for the idea men, especially in this region, it's pretty hard to do that. So nevertheless, I really think that it's very important to like what you're doing and to believe and be comfortable with whom you're doing it, and really with the idea, in order to deliver good results. And really, whether you realize it or not, you could be carving out a future that you also end up inhabiting. So ideas are a virus. Ideas are the most powerful source of energy to humans, and we should handle with care. So whether approached or by or approaching a brand for a disruptive change of narrative, rebrand, guerrilla marketing, viral video, before anything else, you need to convince the brand to take that leap of faith with you together. And you need to convince them of your expertise and your safety skills, and you need to back them up with some claims and some proof of what you've done thus far. Whether you've taken part in projects, whether you've done pet projects, whether you've collected a collection of successful campaigns. You need to convince them that once you take that leap of faith, there is no turning back. Because even if you and the representative are on the same page, you know, you guys are still not on the same side of the barricade, even though you're working towards a goal. So it's very important to have the guts and to have the edge. That's why our Studio Rubik slogan is "We got edge," basically. Sometimes it's not the smoothest communication, but in the end, what matters is results and really, you know, overcoming status quo and just recycling, restructuring, changing, adapting. Because even right now, the way I'm telling you how guerrilla marketing is done is obsolete the moment I speak it. It's like Wu Wei. You can only be in the state of flow while you're in it. The moment you name it, the moment you try to define it, you lose it. So the future mediums of guerrilla marketing, of disruptive creative, of something that's above the rest, will be determined and by a completely different set of steps. And I really think that we cannot predict them, because right now they're doing fights. For example, KSI and Logan Paul are fighting for money, which are not fighters, but violence is an impulse that basically strikes it's an emotional trigger. There are podcasts, different forms that will take more and more time, virtual reality. So we cannot predict those forms and try to mimic them, but we can follow the rules of the basic storytelling principles and the human triggers, which will carry on through time, because there's some fundamental concepts. And I think that really is the best what we can do, and we can try to keep our minds fresh and flexible. So by collaborating with others, by trying new things. So that's pretty much it for now. I couldn't get deeper into and show you a lot more videos that I have, but those are the 2 hours, and I think it's too much for one sitting anyway. But with this course, what I hope that we can achieve together is have, hopefully, tete-a-tete, face-to-face, and not just over live stream, but use technological, classical trends and kind of exchange views and know-how on the topic that we're all interested in, and basically creating unique works that you know, make a difference out there. And perhaps we come up with some practical ideas that we can, by the end of the course, we can pitch to some of our clients, in particular to Viacom and Comedy Central, because they're always hungry for content. So what I want from us all is to be doing a lot of practical problems, a lot of guerrilla campaigns made in the course that are taken from successful ones, but basically adapted to our local habitat or to the relevant times. And we will also have a lot of visitings of guests, like I said. So if you, from both international viral makers and local ones, so if you guys found this interesting in any way, just don't forget to vote. Here's the Slido code, GM01, for this course to become reality. And I humbly thank you for the attention that you've given me out of your quarantine times. I wish you open spaces and the mental fortitude to persevere. Take it easy, but take it. Salute. If you have any questions, now is the time. Let me see if this is working. Okay. Okay, now I see the questions. Okay. How are those videos distributed originally? Are they published on the company's own channels, or are they published through personal ones? Okay, so it depends on the video. If you can write which one in particular you mean, I can answer, but it's basically
first it depends how you're doing it. As somebody's giving me a sign that you don't know how to vote. Okay, so if you use the Slido code GM01 on the platform of SoftUni, you can rate this lecture and potentially assist in the creation of this course. So how are the videos distributed originally? If you are making it, the two types of, let's say, of potential viral video making, you have an idea that's hot, that you think is gonna fly. I have several examples of those of friends of mine, of ours. We don't have the time to show them now, but if you have the idea and then you see it suitable for particular partners, it could be a sex shop, it could be a clothing, it could be food and beverage, extreme equipment. Why did we go with extreme sports at first? Because there's a very common job, it's not a very common job, it's a very rare job, but it's becoming more and more common, of extreme athletes doing risk assessment for VCs, for corporations, because if you can plan a rope swing or jumping from the stratosphere, you're pretty good with risk assessment, and that can be applied to business and other fields as well. So when you have a project like that, you try to get in brands that are relative for that, and then you have the rights because they're visiting. So you can launch the project on your own channel or through another one, and then it's going to get picked up from licensors and licensees, and this way you start haggling and playing the game. So some will immediately ask you to give them the rights. You will not. Obviously, you need to consult with an attorney, read online. If you don't have an attorney, read it. The information is out there. You just need to be careful. Then others will start offering you money for it. Then the way it's going to be presented, you need to be considerate of your sponsor, of the client, of the product placement that you're promoting, where it's going to be promoted. If it's a gizmo and you get offered less money by Gizmodo or Gear Junkie, the big websites, rather than some other site that offers you more money but does not have the relative audience, you would of course do the right thing if you sacrifice that more money at the moment to make a better, penetration of the market you were going for and better results for your partner, so that you can keep working with them, because these relationships will sustain. I have hundreds and hundreds of mails with Business Insider, with Daily Mail UK, with the New York Times, with journalists that you continue to give them the information, the narrative, the story, and when you have a new project, you kind of try to custom tailor it for them, and you give it to them. Sometimes they don't take it, sometimes they do, but you sustain that relationship. With brands is the same. That's why, in the end it pays off. Another thing is if you're doing it the other way around and you do it for Red Bull, let's say, Red Bull have a guideline by Red Bull Media House for particular, for the way it has to be shot. So if you fall in line with these guides, then the Red Bull channel can release it and it's going to be viral that way. But you want to know how to basically address your audience, which audience you want to know if you want to make money from this, because you're going to start selling the content to MTV, to other channels for top and tails, and everybody will try to butcher it, change the music. That's why it's very important in the beginning to engineer your seed and to place your product placements in the hottest spots, whether it's boobs or someone performing a wingsuit flight. You want to have that particular eye candy moment. So yeah, once they get distributed, they start getting shared and licensed, then it picks on and becomes an avalanche effect. Then you start sending it to festivals if it's longer. It really depends on the work, but there are many channels that we can address in this course. It depends how you're going to devise it. So cool, and thank you for this video. Sound dominates the voice. Maybe it's good to lower the video sound. Next time I will know. I thought I was talking too loud. Which video for Red Bull? Was the video produced by request from Red Bull, or did they reach out after you published it? I got confused. No, it was requested by Red Bull, of course, because they helped us realize it. But because it was so disruptive and so crazy, at first it was a little bit unofficial. That's why many brands can be cautious. It's something that hadn't been done. People jumping off a building in Eastern Europe, you know, an old dilapidated building, so from the 18th floor. So afterwards, of course, they were very, very happy with the exposure. But yeah, it was planned, and it was a series of. It started with the first swing, and then which built into the narrative of a series, and then we continued working with them. Okay, the Akasha brand introduction video is cool, yes, but I still wonder about the extreme ones. Did you make them on your own and then sold them to brands? Yes, for the brands in particular, we of these rope swings, we had the idea, and then we invited the brands, we showed them the concept, and then we realized that, you know, we had some brands in advance, and you have to choose carefully because you can have two brands from the same segment that can't work together. So you need to make a choice. And when you exclude someone, that kind of defines your relationship in the future. So it really is also a little bit a game of politics. But you should try to play with as many people as you can, because I think that only that has the potential of achieving greater results, and nobody should be afraid of having their idea stolen, because there is no such a thing as their idea. It's just another representation of one of the 7 plots. Thank you, Petkova. Amazing pronunciation and voice. I could listen to you 24/7. All right, that's making me feel uncomfortable. You know, everybody hates their voice, so I'm no excuse. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. If you guys have more questions, 17 questions. Let me see if I'm missing something. Upon entering the Slido code, I can only find the ask options, but no vote or rate options. All right, guys, I see everybody's having problems with voting, so I'll call my tech support and ask how I can assist that for you. You can also ask me anything on Instagram, for example, where we publish some content. That's my Insta tag. Алло, здрасти, Симона. Алло. Wow, that's weird. I apologize for this thing, guys, but it's very difficult in time of Corona, because I think that aside from me, there's one more person in the building, and we're trying to make this work for you with the gloves and the masks and everything, and our technical support is obviously limited. Ало, здрасти. Абе, още сме on air и хората питат как да гласуват, викат, че нямало никъде рейд, не могат да се оправят. 6-7 човека ми писат. Добре. Може ли... Да. Кажи ми на кое... Няма нужда във Фейсбук, че... Кажи как е в семинара. Да вляза, значи. Така, ето семинара е този, който е SoftUni Events. Така, значи, като отворите тази страница... Добре, благодаря за чуване. Така, като отворите тази страница, която е на семинара, това е в SoftUni и семинари. Ето тук може да я намерите на семинари, на главната страница на SoftUni Digital. Натискате Disruptive-Creative, Brand Awareness, Guerrilla Marketing and Viral Video. Отваря се този семинар, след което имаме презентация в най-долен ляв ъгъл. Презентация, слайдо, анкета. И отваряме анкетата и почвате да ме замерите с домати. Това е общо взето плана. Or anvils. Значи в главната страница пак показвам на SoftUni, който иска да гласува, за да може този курс да се случи, защото наистина трябва да натрупаме някакъв брой оценка и интерес, за да може да задълбаем. И ето тук на семинари е Disruptive-Creative, самия семинар, и долу в ляв ъгъл може да намерите анкета. Надявам се това да отговаря на въпроса. Така, да погледна дали има други 23 въпроса. What metrics are important for you in your job? How you know your success? So, this is a very abstract question, I would say, because it can be answered in several ways. For me personally, or for my company, it depends where we're working on an internal project, or if we're servicing a client for the first time, if we're maintaining the momentum of an existing campaign for a client that we've been working on for a long time. And it boils down to those things. So I think that it's subjective, but ultimately you want your clients to sell and make money, because this is what it's about. Unless you're doing art, the moment you put a price tag on something creative, it is no longer art, it becomes a product. And there's I have a big love-hate relationship with this in particular, but it's another way to make me love my job by approaching it in a more artistic manner. So if a viral campaign ultimately leads to sales, that's for me something truly successful, or to a change of mindset, or to a new trend. You know, if it's just raising a lot of noise, then I'd rather have less exposure and more substance over hype. You know, more meaning, because you can, you know, cover yourself with animal feces and run around that's not too bad, around the presidential office and make the news for one day. You know, it has to be, I believe, meaningful. And sure, there's no such thing as bad publicity, but only if you want publicity for the sake of publicity. You know, you need to engineer your incentives, desires, and goals early on in this research phase, in the storytelling phase before you can expect and desire any desirable outcome. So I hope that answers it. Is it disruptive to ask about pricing? Not concretely, just for orientation. What is the cost scope of Guerrilla video production? So that's my favorite question. My partners, and Christophe from Motion Software in particular, big up, says that I'm a cutthroat when it comes to that, because I really do believe that in this part of the world, I try not to work so much with Bulgarian brands. Some of them are very open-minded, others not so much. But people are not used to paying for ideas. They're used to paying for something they can see and they can touch, like the tiles on your bathroom, like taking your car to a mechanic. Ideas are the beginning of everything. So of course they're gonna I love it when they tell me, when a client tells me, a new client or an old one, the old ones
you teach how not to address it that way. But no, but a new one says like, oh yeah, I really like that thought. You know what? Why don't you? I'll give you some brief, and why don't you think it over tonight or something, and come up with a couple of ideas. No, I get paid to think ideas. That's what you do. You get in, you take, and you don't just think while you're in the toilet. You just get with. Sometimes the best ideas come in the toilet, sure, but you get with a bunch of really serious, smart heads, and you guys stay in a room locked until you want to kill each other or deliver, you know, a baby, a new idea. So pricing is a very important part of it, and my advice would be, if the client is big, postpone as much as you can talking about money. Get into the relation, into the idea, see that you're on the same page, and if the client is small, talk about money right away, so that you guys are not wasting each other's time if it's a startup. So if it's a big client, you don't have the money talk for a long time. And also, if they come to you for disruption or for something that is edgy, they're there because you have an edge over the others, and basically you offer some rare expertise. So it is expected for you to charge more. Now, you want to charge, but you want to do the work and put the work where your mouth is at. So otherwise you only have one client and you won't have any more else. And also it depends what part of the world you are. You know, if you're doing something for Bulgaria, is one thing. If you're doing something for an international client from Bulgaria, is also another thing. If you're flying out there, so it really depends. Where exactly is the vote option? At the bottom of the lecture, you can find on SoftUni the seminar, and then at the bottom of the Disruptive-Creative seminar, you can find Anketa and vote. Bottom left corner, where it says resources. It's very weird, I must say, that the application form is in Bulgarian, even though the course is in English. So there was one more question. Wow, they're piling up. What could you suggest, Borzidar says, what could you suggest for non-commercial work, humanitarian causes, for example? Do you mean coming up with a campaign for an NGO or for some cause like PETA or something? That's always a good reason to sit down and come up with an idea. And sometimes the best work comes after you've done some free work and you've done something really clever, you know, that's without a particular immediate reward. So yeah, I do believe that creative things and ideas and art and advertising should be done for the sole purpose of a great idea. And if you manage to do something that's like that, it always pays back afterwards. For example, like my partner and friend Ilko Iliev, had a dream of doing 2D parkour in Marine. Had the dream of doing a parkour 2D video in the taste of the old GTA games. You should follow Ilko on Instagram as well, Ilko Iliev. And this was done on a no budget at first, among a bunch of friends. And it resulted in winning the New York Drone Film Festival. Okay, so I died here, right here. Whoops, the red guy. I had to fall 25 times over these stairs. It was excruciating. That's Alfonso. So you do something like that, and then it goes so viral that you include the logos of your friends. And then it starts living its own life. And it won a red epic 8K camera and a drone, so the biggest one. That's the rooftop of our office. So yeah, things should be done just for the idea, just for the fun, just for the creativity. If Ilko had waited here to gather all the sponsors, we were looking for something. They were first going to have some influence over the stunts, because they're all living stunts. Even the Buzluj rappel, this is upside down. Everything is real inside. Would have had a say, and it would have postponed it, and it might have missed its timing, because really, timing is very important. When you have an idea, act upon it. When you have a concept in your mind, don't just write 2 words and note it. I often do that as well. Sit down and act upon it, because their lives are ephemeral, like flies. Yeah. So I think this is all. More questions. Thank you guys, really kind words. Thank you for bearing with me through this, and for watching everything. Looking forward to doing some cool projects together, and stay healthy, stay safe. Hang on, but let go. Thank you. I really don't know how to stop this. That's why I'll call.